see that this universe Spider-Man does not need my help at all. Wait. What the? Okay. See, I know why you're here, and you're here for that review of Spider-Man, well, Into the Spider-Verse. But just give it a second. I was just reading this paper, trying to catch up on a different Spider-Man's timeline, and then, you know, just to catch up and see what happens. But stay right there. We're going to get into the review right now. Just stay tuned. Please wait. Please wait. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Makes no sense. Okay, so now I went to go see Into the Spider-Verse about 3 or 4 days ago. Oh, hold on. I went to go see it about 3 or 4 days ago. It comes out on the 14th. That's when it comes out. So this is gonna be a review. I'm gonna keep the spoilers or whatever you want to call it. I won't ruin the movie till like probably 6 minutes into the video. So I'll let you know when they're about to come. So for those of you who don't know, Miles Morales is not a fairly new. He's kind of somewhat new with Spider-Man. He debuted in August of 2011. He's from a different timeline, and he was introduced after Peter Parker's death from a different universe. So the movie kind of takes a spin on that, which is actually good. I went to an early screening of the movie, and so I got to see it early. It was pretty good. I got to get this hat, got the Spider-Man hat. You know, let's. I've never put this thing on, so let's put it on right now. So I'm like Spider-Man wearing a Spider-Man's hat. Cool, cool. I got this nice poster right here with some things in the back. That's definitely cool. And also I got these old school Spider-Man, you know, headphones. I don't know if you can see that. Let's get in there so you can see that. That's pretty cool. I'll keep these for backups. Not gonna really use them right now. Got this whole Spider-Man, you know, blanket from the PS4 video game. My friend gave me this paper from so I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is great. And the movie was cool. So yeah, basically Miles Morales, he just takes over for his Spider-Man in his universe that passed away too, but I don't know where it is. So yeah, let's jump straight into the review. So Miles Morales is a different Spider-Man from a different timeline, dimension, whatever you want to call it. His Peter Parker is dead. So the difference between that and the comic book. In the comic book, it wasn't really Gwen Stacy, the Spider-Woman. Yeah, Spider-Woman was chasing around Miles Morales because Miles Morales was using Spider-Man's old suit, and she went to figure out who was the one wearing Peter Parker's costume because she knew that he was dead as well. And for that main reason, and I know another Spider-Man comes from our dimension. I call our dimension or our timeline the main exact timeline. So our Spider-Man is not dead. Miles Morales' Spider-Man is dead. So Peter Parker comes from our timeline to let him know it's okay for him to be Spider-Man. It's like a passing of the torch because Miles Morales was dealing with some things on the inside, thinking that he's not ready to be Spider-Man. And the way that the movie took part of it, like I guess put its take on it, was a really fairly good way to do it, and that was pretty cool. And also I got my pop set up. So this is Miles Morales from the video game. I have Miles Morales from the movie. At this end right here, got Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen from the comic issue, but then I got Spider-Noir, whatever you want to call him, from the game. So there's you have Miles Morales, you got Peter Parker, you got Gwen Stacy, you got Spider-Noir, you got Spider-Ham, and you got Penny Parker. So there's about 6 Spider-Mans. And if you're a real Spider-Man fan, you know there's way more Spider-Mans than that. And for the movie wise, sticking to like if you know the history and information of like any Spider-Mans or the different universes or dimensions, whatever you want to call it, you could like actually score this movie fairly good. I was shocked on how good it was, and since it wasn't a live action, it was a cartoon. The way they do things is better than a live action can do because it makes more sense. Um, for when Miles Morales gets bit by the spider, I don't really recall it being the way that it happened, but the spider that he got bit was fairly different, which is a good thing as well. So he only has two different powers from Spider-Man. He has the camouflage, and he has Venom Strike, which is like an electric discharge. It's not actual venom, and I think that was my only problem in the movie was the way that they went about it, because he never stated himself that, oh, I have a Venom Strike, or oh, the camouflage thing. He just did it, and for some reason they automatically knew the name for it. Oh yes, and the other thing for, well, not that, but the other thing for the Into the Spider-Verse, I know people were talking about the way that it looked because of the trailers, the way that they used the trailers. It looked like it was gonna be 3D-ish. Well, they took the trailer from like a 3D scene of the movie, but actually it's supposed to be like you're watching a comic book story take part or happening. So that's the reason why some of the scenes look like it's straight out of a comic book. They got some like little blurbs set up or whatever you want to call it, like the little thought bubbles and like train travel, like meanwhile here and there. And also there's a like a, let's say, a glitch happening in the movie to make things seem like the screen is distraught or the characters are like messed up a little bit, and that's actually part of the movie. So that was really cool to finally see, like, oh, why is this happening in the movie? Why does things look like this? Why does it look like that? I don't know why, because as soon as I heard Into the Spider-Verse and all the Spider-Mans are pouring into the different dimensions and all that stuff, I automatically assumed that it was for freaking like the Madam Web thing from like the animated Spider-Man from like the freaking late 90s. I thought it was going to be another repeat of that, and I was like, I do not want to see Madam Web in this movie. Even though I don't have a problem with Madam Web, I just don't like her that much. And so yeah, so after Miles Morales gets this whole, like, you know, his spider bite, he was spray painting with his uncle in like one of the subway tunnels. And he goes to this school, this new school or whatever. He's not so fond of it because Miles Morales has always been like a smart kid, especially science-wise. But in the movie, they make it seem like he's smart, but they don't show it. He doesn't have the need to feel like he doesn't want to be smart. He wants to do other things than school, which is fine because if you think of it, every kid growing up is almost like that. So that's understandable from that point. So then he starts, like, he goes to sleep, he wakes up, and you can tell there's something different. The whole spider bite made him, like, let's say 1.5 feet taller. His clothes don't fit. And he's just going around calling it puberty, which was, like, a hilarious thing if you, like, teenager or up and stuff. So the parts of the movie was, like, really, really funny and good. It takes a mixture of, like, a little bit of serious parts here and there, some comedy and drama. It was all good. I actually liked it. And I know that for what part it was. So after he gets his spider bite, I think he went back to where him and his uncle was spray painting at, and it was actually a Fisk, a Fisk building. If you don't know who Fisk is the Kingpin, big bald dude. And the way they made Kingpin look in this movie is pretty ridiculous. I wasn't expecting him to be that big because he's in here getting out of cars. The way that he's shaped looks like he can't even fit in a car. He can't fit through a goddamn door. So I don't know why they made Fisk look like that, but it's pretty funny and cool. So he's going back through that nonsense and like going back where he came from, at like what his uncle after he got the spider bite, just to see like what's happening. And after he gets the he looks for the spider that bit him. He finds it is dead. And after that, what happened after that? after that, he notices that something going on. He goes to check it out. He's in like one of the Fisk tunnels or whatever for the main science lab that's deep down in Brooklyn, and he notices Spider-Man swinging around fighting his timeline Green Goblin, which is actually like a giant goblin with wings, which is ridiculous, but that's understandable. And he's fighting him, and he's also getting chased by the Prowler, which is something totally explainable for later on. And he's just watching the whole thing, recording it, and then he gets caught in some of the middle of the action. And then after that, Spider-Man saves him, and that's when like the whole spider sense, the Spider-Man or Spider People, if you want, can communicate for some reason through the spider senses, which is, I guess, an explanation of a way to say like how they knew that Miles had camouflage and Venom Strike. That's the only way they can explain it, because he never stated himself like, oh, this is my Venom Strike or this is my camouflage. So Peter Parker ends up saving him, and he's like, whoa, you're just like me. I thought I was the only one. And Miles thought that he couldn't be a Spider-Man, so he says, you stay right here. I'm going to take care of all this stuff. And then this bad things start to happen. Peter Parker gets messed up. So this is Miles Morales' Spider-Man's from his timeline that ends up getting killed. What's going to happen eventually, because you don't see two Spider-Men in the trailer at all. And that's where the explanation comes from, because you're thinking like, oh, then who's the Spider-Man later on? And after that, Spider-Man gives him a flash drive or a goober, because Peter Parker makes up like these funny little names for these things that he creates. So he calls this thumb drive or this flash drive a goober, and he has to put it inside this creation that Fisk has a scientist make for him to shatter and construct and bring different dimensions to his location, which isn't explained until the middle of the movie. So after that whole explosion, because that was the first test run, it worked, but they end up bringing like buildings and crap from different dimensions. Fisk kills Spider-Man after he was hurt from the explosion, and then Miles starts running because he's about to get caught. And after he's running, the Prowler chases him, and I'm just so you know, I'm about to get into spoilers like right now, so you can stop this video if you want. Thanks for sticking around and all this stuff, but give it 2 seconds. That's 5 seconds. But yeah, Miles Morales' uncle is the Prowler, which wasn't really. It was expected, but it was, if you knew, it was expected. So they chase him, and then they had to throw this big funeral for Spider-Man and all this stuff. Miles Morales goes buys himself a Spider-Man costume from like this store, and the person who owns the store is freaking Stan Lee, which was amazing. It was like that cameo was longer than it should have been, but it was perfect, so I didn't care, because he stood there smiling, and he says something about like, how do you know if the costume fits? If the costume doesn't fit, you just grow into it or something like that. But the costume that Miles Morales had was basically like this costume, because this costume is way too tight at this point, but he can even fit the costume, and he kept it. So then, like, a little fast forward, he goes to the cemetery where Peter's buried at, and he goes like, oh, I'm sorry, it's my fault that you're dead and all that. I'm going to carry out what you wanted. I'm going to help you with the rest of the stuff. I'm going to stop that machine. And basically the machine that Fisk had one of the scientists make is something that brings people from different parallel universes, dimensions, whatever you want to call it, to where he is. Because apparently, because of that, Peter Parker's from Miles' timeline has Kingpin's family run out on him, and they die in a car crash, which necessarily isn't really Spider-Man's fault. It's Kingpin's fault for trying to fight Spider-Man in the first place. And for some reason, they couldn't believe, Fisk's wife and son couldn't believe that he was a bad guy fighting Spider-Man. Which at this point, you're married to a giant mob boss who's like, what, 6 feet and a half tall, 500 pounds, and you don't think that he's doing illegal stuff. That's on you. And So yeah, that's where all the other Dimension Spider-Mans come into play. So while he's at the cemetery talking Spider-Man, he gets our Spider-Man from our timeline go visit him from the first time when the weapon shot off. So the thing that I like that they did was hilarious. Every time when they introduced one of the new Spider-Man and Spider People, they gave them their little intro, like, "Hi, I'm Peter Parker," and for this time, I thought I was the only Spider-Man until now. So they did that with every Spider-Man until they had like the last three, which was Spider Pig, Penny Parker, and Spider Noir. They all did their intro at the same time. Gwen Stacy did her intro as well, even though she came earlier than Peter Parker because she was from like the very, very first test run. But the thing with her is weird because she said she's from 15 minutes from the future, which I didn't really comprehend that, which was fine. And again, I guess they used her because she's more relevant than Spider-Woman, which is okay because Spider-Woman is pretty cool. So after Peter Parker and finally he gets knocked out like twice, the cops are going to the cemetery to find out who's that kid in the Spider-Man suit. They're seeing him web sling and they think, oh, but Spider-Man's supposed to be dead. So they sent out this whole cop search for like Peter Parker carrying, well, not Peter Parker, they got this kid in a Spider-Man suit carrying a homeless person, which is Peter Parker. And yeah, so when he finally wakes up, he has him like tied up to like this whole sandbag and stuff. And he's like, oh, you gotta help me. He's like, who are you? Why do you look like Peter Parker? He's like, I am Peter Parker. So they give this whole explanation. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, but they give this whole explanation of what's been happening. And he's like, oh, you could train me. You could like teach me the ropes and all this other stuff. And Peter Parker's like, no, I don't do that. He doesn't do kids. So the cool thing about that is that since that's our Spider-Man, you know that him and Mary Jane is not together no more, but Miles Morales' Peter Parker was still with Mary Jane. And so that comes into play. So they go back to Fisk Labs trying to recreate the Goober because they need to steal intel. Because before that, Miles Morales accidentally broke the Goober / flash drive, or whatever you want to call it at this point, because he landed on it trying to practice his own web sling. And that was a big, pretty funny thing about that. Just trying to see, Miles do the whole. It reminded me of Spider-Man 1, the Tobey Maguire film, when he was trying to be like, go web go, and do all these weird things trying to get the spider webs out. So that was pretty cool. But they go to Fisk Labs, and this is something that I was surprised I wasn't able to like piece this together, because there's a part early in the film, the name, but it's Miles Morales' Dr. Octavius or Doc Ock or Otto Octavius, whatever you want to call him. Well, her, because it's a female in Miles Morales' timeline. So with that part, they go into the lab, they're stealing information, and she's shocked just to see that Spider-Man is still alive. But she's aware because she's the one who created the Dimension Shatterer, let's say, the Dimension device for Kingpin. So she's aware that Peter Parker / Spider-Man does not belong there at all. So she goes in there after they sneak inside the lab. Miles Morales, that's when you see in the commercial, he goes invisible and he's hanging on the ceiling. And he's singing the Sunflower song by Post Malone and Sway Lee, which is actually pretty cool. I like that song. That's a good song. Check it out if you haven't. But at that part was pretty funny because she sits him down in the chair and she's like, well, Spider-Man tries to work his charm on her, not knowing that she knows that they're both Spider-Man. But actually, the people from that timeline don't know that Miles Morales is Spider-Man yet. So after that part, she sits him down in the chair and she's like, oh my god, like, what's happening to you and all this other stuff. She was like, you came from a different dimension, didn't you? And then he starts doing that weird glitching thing where his like jaw turns upside down, his eyes jump out. It's like he has a bad computer bug. And so at that point, she like sits him down in the chair and straps him out. He's like, she tells him, the longer you stay in this dimension, the closer you get to dying. And he's like, oh, well, then I gotta get out of here. And she's like, I can't wait to see you die. So he's legit strapped into the chair. And she's like, and he goes like, oh, what's your name and all this other nonsense. She's like, oh, I'm Dr. Otto Octavius. And she was like, but some people call, I think it was like Viv or something. I don't remember the name was, but it was so funny just to see the look on his face when he found out that that was that timeline's like Doc Ock, and like they just started going the whole fight. Miles is still invisible, and he's like trying to steal the computer, and he's trying to steal the monitor. And at that point, she's like, "Oh, you have an invisible friend." And in one of the scenes, if you look briefly, you can just see, excuse me, you can see Gwen Stacy. Like, I guess she infiltrated the lab, or somehow she has a job as an intern at the Fisk Laboratories or whatever. And I guess she goes to suit up because as Spider-Man and, well, as Miles Morales and Peter Parker are like trying to escape from Doc Ock, they're running through the building, and he's like, he came up with all these like crazy like steps he wanted to do to like steal the intel. And there's a part where they're running through the cafeteria like all nonchalant. All the scientists in that lab, they just start picking up like little blasters to try shooting them, and they just jump out. Miles Morales didn't create his own web slinger yet, so Peter Parker gives him one of his. So now they both have one web sling each, and he's teaching him how to swing. And he's like, "I can't do this." He's like, "Yes, you can." They get halfway apart, but then they end up getting caught by Doc Ock, and then that's from the part in the commercial where you see when Stacy like jump down on the tree branch in the like forest looking thing, and she helps them out and saves them. So those three just leave, and they're like, "We need to find a place to go. There's a place that we need to go where we can get help." And the place that they choose is Aunt May's house. And I was shocked to see it because it resembled like the house from Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. And I automatically thought they were going to go to Mary Jane's house. But no, it was Aunt May's house. Then Aunt May already assumed that they were going to come. Like, she had everything already ready. So, like, that Spider-Man from that timeline, his Spider-Man setup reminded me of the old 80s cartoon of the Spider-Man and Friends with Firestar and Iceman. That's what his setup and layup reminded me of, because they go inside the shed, May activates it, and they go like way down in the ground below, and they have all the Spider-Man suits, all the Spider-Man gadgets. They even have the Spider-Man car, and then that's where they introduce Spider-Noir, or Noir, I don't know why I keep on mixing up. They introduce that Spider-Man, then they introduce Penny Parker, and then they introduce Spider-Ham. And then Peter Parker goes, "Alright, how many Spider-Mans are there?" And after that, they need to come up with an idea. So, after they come up with an idea to infiltrate, like, Fisk or Kingpin, whatever you want to call him, they infiltrate his little morning get-together that he's throwing for the death of Peter Parker. Which is pretty messed up because, you know, he's the one who killed him. And for a little bit, you know, our timeline, Spider-Man is trying to, like, talk to Mary Jane, because in our timeline, they're not together anymore. But in Miles Morales' timeline, they were together. But she doesn't know who he is, in a say, because basically the other Spider-Man are telling him not to interfere. And at that point, they continue with the mission, but they just try not to use they try not to use Miles Morales at that point, because after they get the new information, they make the next Goober and all that other nonsense. He brings it back to them, but he ends up finding out that he was followed by the Prowler, and also they bring the Prowler, they bring Tombstone, which is in the movie, they bring Kingpin, and they bring Doc Ock and Scorpion to fight them. So while Miles Morales is not that good as being a Spider-Man, it's just straight like 5-on-5 fight when given a 5-on-6, and they're all like trashing Aunt May's house, and she's just like, "Take this outside, please take it outside." Miles Morales goes invisible. He steals the Goober for himself, and at that point, Penny Parker, Spider-Ham, Noir, they're all fighting. They're all holding their own, and the Prowler goes after Miles Morales. They get stuck on the roof, and at that point, which doesn't really happen because Miles Morales' uncle, Aaron, is actually the Prowler. He gets shot and killed. But I know there's a new issue of Spider-Man. He reveals himself to be the new Spider-Man. He's wearing like a black and yellow Iron Spider costume, I think. But that was interesting to see, and pretty messed up, because Miles Morales dealt with the death of Peter Parker, so he felt he was responsible to carry out and finish that mission, and now he finally lost somebody who was close to him, which was also like the equivalent of Spider-Man or Peter Parker, you can say, losing Uncle Ben. So Miles Morales lost his uncle, even though he still got his mom and dad, but he related to his uncle more. So after that whole ordeal, they try to they take Miles Morales back to his room. They tell him that he's not ready. They tie him up and leave him. And he's just like, how would I know when I'm ready? How would I know what I'm supposed to do? Spider-Man just tells him, you just have to leap of faith. You'll know when you're ready. It's like one of those things. So they leave him, and our Peter Parker decides that he's gonna be the one to shut it down. That he's gonna stay in the dimension and die, because if they don't go back to their own dimension, like I said before, they all die. And Miles Morales, he was webbed up to a chair. He couldn't get out. He finally had that breakthrough and was able to get out of the chair. But before that, his dad comes and try to talk to him, because he hasn't talked to his dad since I guess the first half of the movie. And because his dad doesn't really like Spider-Man that much. He doesn't, which is better explained in the movie. And then at that point, he finds out that he's actually ready. So he go visits Aunt May. Aunt May was like, I was waiting for you to show up this whole time, which that was pretty cool. So I guess you can call her the auntie for all Spider-Men, I guess. And so she helps him with the armor. He chooses his own, armor. He chooses his own Spider-Man suit. And it's not, this is the original one that he has, but it's not that one that he chooses. He chooses one of the other one. He spray paints, because he's a big graffiti artist. And, so he takes one of the old suits and he sprays them up to his own color and liking. And he goes out and he starts web slinging perfectly. He has his own made web slingers that's perfect fit for him. And he just goes out and he meets up at the Fisk Labs with the other spider people, because the machines are going off. They're sending buildings, cars, buses from all other dimensions, because Fisk is still trying to bring back his family. And all the other spider people were there. They're fighting. And when Miles Morales just shows up and he gives that extra hand to help them, that was one of the coolest parts of the movie, because they're in there getting work done, and Miles Morales is showing that he can finally hold his own, that he's ready. And so they all send off the Spider-Mans one by one. They send off Penny. They send off Peter. They send off Peter Porker or Spider-Man, whatever you want to call him. He gives Miles Morales his mallet, said it'll fit in your pocket, which was funny, because Spider-Man is strictly from a cartoon dimension. And Spider-Noir, he gets to leave. He takes a Rubik's Cube, which is played by Nicolas Cage, which not that many people knew for some reason. And Gwen Stacy was the next one to go. So it's just Miles and Peter Parker, how it was almost at the beginning of the movie. So now this time he's actually helping Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is like, I can't leave you alone to do this. How do I know? He wasn't ready to go back, because in this dimension he's still with Mary Jane, even though it doesn't really count for him. And Miles Morales is like, no, you have to go back. He ends up he pulls one of the tricks on him that he did early in the movie, where he first met our Peter Parker, and he's like, remember, you gotta watch the hands, not the mouth. So after all that fighting and action, Miles Morales is left by himself to defend Kingpin. And this fight was I don't want to throw the fight up there, but the fight, I'll rate the fight a 7 out of 10, because I don't know. Kingpin is distraught, and Miles Morales, he is actually pretty strong and nowhere near his prime yet, but his durability as a Spider-Man, he doesn't know his durability, but it's actually pretty good. And then that's what he gets to use. He'll use more of his camouflage, and he just ends the fight with a spider strike, the venom strike, and with the electrocutes him. And the cool thing about the fight though is that his dad is in the control room of the laboratory, where they have the protective glass. And he's watching Spider-Man fight, still not knowing that it's Miles Morales, which he doesn't even figure out at all. And he's just like, no, Spider-Man, you gotta get up. And he hears his dad yelling that, because it's a part where Fisk uses the same move that he used to kill Peter Parker in the beginning of the movie, where he just slams his fist down on him, and he's knocked out cold. Fisk thought he killed Spider-Man, but Spider-Man gets back up. Well, Miles gets back up, and he's getting ready to fight him again, and he's just he uses the move that his uncle told him to use to talk to Gwen, when you just put your hand on the shoulder and you go, hey, to just to break the ice with the girl that he likes. And he just sends Kingpin flying, and Kingpin is like a huge dude, which was like hilarious to say the least. And he finally shuts down the machine, and then that was it. It was great. You know, he got to save the day as his Spider-Man. He has the right suit, and he's going around swinging around town, and they come both the credits, and then the it's the yeah that's the end of the movie. And then, you know, make sure you stay after the credits because I'm not gonna throw that in there. But that was pretty cool. There's supposed to be more Spider-Man spin-offs. Well, Spider-Verse spin-offs, because at the end of the credits they show James Jonah Jameson, which was hilarious because I wasn't expecting that. And they used one of the big memes. Maybe I'll throw a picture in there for the memes or not, but they used that to introduce one of the Spider-Mans that wasn't in the movie, which everybody is hyped about. And I mean, I'm not that crazy about this Spider-Man, but I like him enough to say that he's really cool. And he's very futuristic. That's the only hit that I'll give. Sorry about this video being like really jumpy around. Thank you guys for watching. You know, like, comment, subscribe. This is TM Ninja. I do Funko Pop videos. I do some toys, some unboxing, some vlogs here and there. I do pins. I do some Disney stuff every once in a while. So again, like, comment, subscribe. Leave a thumbs up if you're a huge Spider-Man fan like I am, or if you even like Spider-Man more than me. I'm fine with that. I'm not going to throw no trivia at you guys just to test that. But thanks for watching again. And I hope you guys have a spiderific day. Or a fantastic day. Hey, thanks for watching again. Peace out, guys.